Torrential rain lashed the city as Detective Ricardo, a hardened man who didn't believe in ghosts, investigated a mysterious murder. The victim, a young woman with bright blue eyes, lay on the cold floor, surrounded by strange symbols and an ancient book with a black cover. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Ricardo felt a chill run down his spine, a frigid premonition telling him this wasn't an ordinary crime. Was the young woman's death connected to the inexplicable events plaguing the city? And who could be behind it all? The rain beat heavily against the police station window, a frantic rhythm echoing the whirlwind of thoughts in Detective Ricardo's head. He was a man of few smiles and many solved cases. But this one was different. The young woman, with eyes as blue as a clear day's sky, was dead. It wasn't just the death. It was how she was dead. The strange symbols drawn around the body, an almost perfect circle of markings that seemed etched into the very stone of the floor, sent shivers down his spine. And that book, an ancient book, its cover as black as the darkest night, resting beside the body, silent and menacing. The pages seemed to whisper secrets in a language Ricardo didn't understand, yet felt deep within his soul. Ricardo rubbed his eyes, trying to push away the image of the young woman. He was a practical man, a detective of facts and evidence, not ghosts and magic. But the truth was, he felt fear, a cold fear that coursed through his veins like melting ice. He had always been skeptical, always clung to logic. But this time, logic refused to provide answers. It was as if an invisible, heavy, mysterious veil covered the entire scene. As he examined the book, a small silver metal object glinted subtly on the cover. It was a tiny buckle, almost invisible in the dim light of the room, but under the weak beam of Ricardo's flashlight, it revealed an intricate engraving that resembled an eye? An eye that stared back at him implacably. He touched it cautiously and felt a slight shock, as if an electric current ran through his finger. It was at that moment that he heard a noise, a soft sound coming from the corridor. Ricardo turned, gun in hand, his heart pounding like a drum. At the end of the corridor, a figure approached. A woman, tall and slender, with long black hair and eyes that shone with an unusual intensity, as if reflecting an inner fire. Her movements were smooth, almost ethereal. She wore a heavy coat that concealed most of her body. But even so, Ricardo noticed something peculiar about her. A slight, mysterious air. A strange scent, like wet earth and aromatic herbs. The woman stopped before him, her bright eyes fixed on his. Her penetrating gaze seemed to read his soul, leaving Ricardo breathless. "Do you feel it too, detective?" she asked, her voice calm and serene, contrasting with the storm raging outside. Ricardo didn't answer immediately. He was paralyzed, unable to utter a single word. It was as if the very atmosphere of the station had changed, charged with an energy he couldn't understand, but felt in every cell of his body. The woman smiled, a mysterious and enigmatic smile. "I am Isabela, and I know you're not dealing with an ordinary crime." Isabela opened her coat, revealing a small pouch of old leather attached to her belt. Inside, a series of peculiar objects were arranged. Dried herbs, shiny stones, small animal bones. Ricardo realized he wasn't facing an ordinary witness, but something far, far beyond his world. Isabela continued, her voice dropping almost to a whisper. The young woman. She was a victim of ancient magic. A magic that crosses worlds, that disregards boundaries, that feeds on fear and darkness. Ricardo felt a shiver run down his spine, even though a part of him still clung to his old disbelief. That book, the symbols, everything seemed to connect to something much larger, something he could never have imagined. It was terrifying, yes, but at the same time, intriguing. Curiosity began to take over his disbelief. He, the skeptical detective, was about to enter a world he had never known before. A world of magic, mystery, of love. Isabela extended her hand, the black book halfway between them. This book. It's the key to all of this. And we need to unravel its secrets together, Detective Ricardo. Her gaze, intense and full of an unknown strength, captivated Ricardo's. And, for the first time in a long time, he felt lost. Lost and with a premonition that his life was about to change forever. The rain outside continued, but now he felt a new kind of storm within him, a mixture of fear and excitement, the harbinger of an adventure that would cross boundaries beyond his wildest imagination, an adventure that would take him beyond the concrete of his life to an encounter with mysteries that would make him a completely different person, even though he himself didn't yet know exactly how different. Isabela's hand, cold as marble, touched Ricardo's. He felt a discharge, not electric this time, but something more, visceral. A wave of energy, strange and powerful, that made him tremble. The black book between them seemed pulsating, radiating a warmth that contrasted with the coldness of the night and the dampness of the incessant rain. Ricardo, despite the fear that gripped his chest like an iron hand, felt a pang of fascination, an irresistible attraction to that unknown world opening before him. It was as if an invisible door had opened, revealing a parallel universe, vibrant and terrifying at the same time. Isabela opened the book, the old yellowed pages whispering a sound that Ricardo could only feel, not hear. They were runes, enigmatic symbols that twisted and danced before his eyes. It was as if the letters had a life of their own, pulsating with an energy that seemed eager to escape the book. Ricardo leaned closer, hypnotized, momentarily forgetting his disbelief. Suddenly, a shadow fell upon them, a dark figure that materialized in the room. A man, or rather, a shadowy and menacing figure with bright red eyes like infernal embers, emerged from the depths of the station, as if he had sprung from the book itself. Ricardo felt a shock, a frigid chill that paralyzed him with fear. He was armed, but his revolver seemed uselessly small against that supernatural creature that emanated a terrifying power, an almost palpable darkness. The man, or creature, let out a raspy laugh, a sinister cackle that echoed in the empty station. He lunged towards them, his hand outstretched towards the black book, which glowed intensely, as if reacting to the threat. Isabela reacted instantly, a fluid and elegant movement, a mixture of dance and fight, preventing the creature from reaching the book. She threw a powder, a mixture of herbs and roots, that spread through the room, creating a fog that obscured vision, but also seemed to weaken the shadowy creature. Ricardo, still in shock, found the strength to react. He fired, not accurately, guided by instinct and adrenaline. The shot hit the creature's shoulder, which let out a cry of pain, an agonizing scream that cut through the silence of the night, and retreated into the shadows. But it didn't flee. The creature watched him, its red eyes blazing with hate and rage, a silent promise of revenge. The shadow dissipated, leaving only the silence, heavy and oppressive. Isabela approached Ricardo, calmly assessing the situation. The fog slowly dissipated, revealing the extent of the fight. Broken furniture, scratched walls, undeniable proof of a battle between two worlds. The battle for the soul of the book, Ricardo thought. He looked at Isabela, seeing in her eyes a mixture of concern and determination. She was injured, a scratch on her arm, but her gaze remained firm. "They know about the book," Isabela said, her voice grave, almost a whisper, "and they will do anything to obtain it. What it holds is very powerful, very dangerous, and we cannot let it fall into their hands." Ricardo, for the first time, felt himself involved in something greater than himself. It was no longer an ordinary murder, no longer a routine investigation. It was a war, a battle between light and shadow, between magic and reality. And he, the skeptical detective, was in the midst of it all, alongside an enigmatic woman who had the power to defy the laws of nature and death itself. A deep fear, but mixed with a strange dose of excitement, overwhelmed him. He looked at the book, feeling the latent energy within it, a force that called to him, that challenged him, that invited him to enter a world he could never have imagined. His life, he knew, had changed forever. The fear remained present, but now it was accompanied by a newfound determination, an unwavering desire to unravel the secrets of the Black Book, even if it meant facing unimaginable dangers. After all, he was Detective Ricardo, and he didn't shy away from a challenge. And now, adventure called, no matter how dangerous the paths ahead. The rain poured down, transforming the city streets into raging rivers. Inside the police station, the atmosphere was as tempestuous as the storm outside. Detective Ricardo, a man who had always trusted only in logic and facts, felt a lump in his throat, a feeling of dread he had never experienced before. The dead young woman, her bright blue eyes now dull, lay on the floor, surrounded by strange symbols that seemed burned into the very stone. The ancient book, with its black and mysterious cover, was beside her, silent yet menacing as a death sentence. The small silver metal buckle on the cover, with the engraving of an implacable eye, still haunted him. That touch, the almost imperceptible shock, echoed in his fingers like a sinister memory. A noise in the corridor, soft as the whisper of the wind, broke his thoughts. Ricardo, revolver in hand, braced himself for the worst. In the dark corridor, a figure emerged, enveloped in a mysterious aura. It was Isabela, a tall and slender woman, with hair as black as night, and eyes that shone with unusual strength. She had a different air, a unique perfume, a smell of wet earth and herbs, something Ricardo couldn't identify, but which left him uneasy. "Do you feel it too, detective?" Isabela asked, her serene voice contrasting with the storm that ravaged the city and the confusion that reigned in his heart. Ricardo was speechless. He couldn't describe the strange sensation, the energy emanating from that woman, from that room, from that peculiar death. It was as if an invisible barrier had broken, revealing a hidden world, a world he never believed existed. Isabela then explained about ancient magic, about forces that crossed dimensions, that fed on fear and darkness. The book, she said, was the key to everything. She opened the small leather pouch, showing herbs, stones, small bones, an arsenal of objects that to Ricardo were just strange, but to Isabela were instruments of power. Touching her hand, Ricardo felt another discharge, not electric this time, but something deeper, visceral. A wave of unknown energy ran through him, shaking his body and soul. The black book between them pulsed with a strange energy, an intense heat that contrasted with the coldness of that cold, rainy night. Ricardo, despite the fear that dominated him, felt drawn to that unknown world. It was a powerful force, an uncontrollable call. Isabela opened the book, yellowed pages, ancient and enigmatic runes that seemed to dance and pulsate before his eyes. It was magical, terrifying, hypnotizing. Ricardo, the skeptic, was surrendering to magic, even unwillingly. At that moment, a shadow fell upon the room, a dark, terrible figure with bright red eyes like infernal embers. It was a shadowy creature that emanated a terrifying power, an almost palpable darkness. The creature lunged towards them, wanting the book, wanting the power it contained. Isabela reacted with speed and elegance, defending the book surprisingly. She used a magical powder that created an obscuring fog, weakening the creature. Ricardo, driven by a survival instinct, shot. The shot hit the creature, which let out an agonizing scream and retreated into the shadows, but didn't flee. Its bright red eyes promised revenge. The fog dissipated, revealing the destruction caused by the fight. Isabela was injured, but her gaze remained firm, determined. "They know about the book," she said, her voice grave, "and they will do anything to obtain it. It's very powerful, very dangerous." Ricardo understood. This was no ordinary crime. It was a war, a battle between two worlds, between light and shadow. And he, the skeptical detective, was in the middle of it, alongside a modern witch who defied the impossible. The fear was intense, but now there was something else, a new determination, a thirst to unravel the mysteries of the Black Book, even if the path was dangerous, even if it meant confronting supernatural forces. His life had changed forever. He was Detective Ricardo, and now he had a new mission, a fantastic and terrifying adventure that would go beyond the limits of his imagination, beyond his old and comfortable reality. The rain continued outside, but a new storm, full of mystery and magic, was brewing within him. The rain outside seemed to echo the turmoil inside Ricardo. He looked at Isabela, her pale face reflected in the weak light of the flashlight. The scratch on her arm bled slightly, but she seemed more concerned with something beyond physical pain. "We need to get out of here," she said, her voice firm, despite the perceptible tremor in her hands. "They will return, and they will be stronger." Ricardo helped Isabela to her feet, the heavy black book in his hands, pulsating with an energy that seemed palpable. The pages whispered, the ancient symbols dancing like restless shadows. It was a magic book that was clear now, and it contained immense power, a power that attracted both light and darkness. They left the police station, the cold night wind whipping their faces. The torrential rain enveloped them, making everything around them even darker, more mysterious. They ran through the dark, wet streets, the sound of their footsteps mingling with the roar of the storm. With each step, Ricardo felt a growing sense of danger, a premonition that they were being followed. As they ran, Isabela whispered something about a safe place, a hidden refuge, far from the prying eyes of mortals and the hungry eyes of creatures of darkness. It was an ancient, ancestral place, a place known only to a few. She spoke in enigmatic terms, in symbols and references that Ricardo didn't understand. But he trusted her. He needed to trust. His life, he realized, depended on it. They reached a narrow, dimly lit alley, hidden between old and imposing buildings. Isabela stopped before an old and worn wooden door, almost invisible in the darkness. She touched the door with her fingertips, and the faded wood suddenly glowed, revealing a complex design that had previously gone unnoticed. An infinite spiral, a serpent devouring its own tail. Ricardo felt a slight shock. The door suddenly opened, revealing a narrow staircase descending into the depths of the earth. At the end of the alley, lurking in the shadows, something moved. Ricardo only managed to glimpse a dark shape, a figure that writhed like a serpent. It was the creature with the red eyes, stronger, more imposing, accompanied by other equally shadowy beings. The bright eyes, like infernal embers, fixed themselves on Ricardo and Isabela. They screamed in a sound that echoed like a mortal growl in the storm. The air became heavy, laden with a visible, palpable evil. Ricardo and Isabela descended the stairs, the book clutched to their chests. The passage was dark and narrow, the steps wet and slippery, but the urgency of the situation propelled them forward. Ricardo felt the icy fear coursing through his veins, but he couldn't show weakness. He couldn't fail. Neither Isabela nor he could fail. Not this time. At the bottom of the stairs, a massive, heavy, imposing stone door stood. Isabela opened it, revealing a completely different world. An ancient, mysterious world, full of millennial secrets. A world that transcended the reality Ricardo knew. A world where magic was as real as the rain falling on the city above. A world, Ricardo thought, that he wasn't yet ready to face, even though he had already taken the first step towards the unknown. But, as they crossed the threshold, Ricardo perceived something different, something beyond the visible darkness, which was there, and which he felt instantly in his heart. An even more sinister presence, an incredibly powerful supernatural force, like a great evil master that hung in the air, waiting. A presence that, beyond fear, also awakened in him an uncontrollable and unimaginable curiosity. The door slammed shut with a bang, leaving them in complete, terrifying, and absolute silence. The sound of the rain outside seemed to disappear completely, but a new sensation of danger, even greater and much more sinister, began to approach. The place where they were now was much more than just a safe place, a hidden refuge. It was the beginning of an even more dangerous and unpredictable journey, a journey to the heart of a supernatural world where the line between reality and magic was thin, almost non-existent. A journey that could lead them to salvation or destruction. Ricardo's breath caught in his throat. What awaited them on the other side? And who was the true master of shadows who had followed them here?